There are royal scandals. And then there are the kinds of stories that make you stop everything and ask, wait, he actually said that? A shocking new allegation connected to Prince Andrew is spreading fast. And according to royal commentators, it's not just the accusation itself that has people stunned. It's how personal it was. How cruel. And apparently, how public. Royal biographer Tom Bower recently described an incident that allegedly took place during one of Andrew's official overseas trips. If the account is accurate, insiders say it reveals something far darker than simple arrogance or entitlement. So what exactly happened? And why are people so disturbed by it? The alleged incident reportedly took place during Andrew's years as Britain's trade envoy, a role that sent him around the world to luxury business events, formal dinners, and high-level international meetings. On the surface, everything looked perfectly controlled. Tailored suits, expensive hotels, elite networking, the full royal machine in motion. But according to Bower, there was allegedly another side to Andrew that people behind the scenes witnessed privately and quietly talked about for years. Bower described what he claimed was a deeply disturbing moment during a formal lunch in Warsaw. The room was full of diplomats, business leaders, and senior officials. The atmosphere was reportedly calm and professional. Then a deputy ambassador entered the room carrying an urgent message about a phone call requiring immediate attention. On its own, that kind of interruption is completely normal during high-level diplomatic visits. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. The deputy ambassador reportedly had a visible disability affecting his foot. And according to Bower's account, Andrew reacted with anger to the interruption and allegedly directed a deeply insulting remark at the diplomat, connected directly to his condition. Not quietly. Not privately. Loudly enough, according to Bower, for multiple people in the room to hear clearly. Royal commentators say that specific detail is exactly why this story has generated such intense reactions. Because if accurate, it doesn't just suggest rudeness or impatience. It suggests someone who allegedly felt completely comfortable humiliating a senior diplomat during an official international engagement representing Britain abroad. And that, observers say, changes everything. But this allegation didn't appear out of nowhere. To understand why it hit so hard, you have to go back further, because Andrew's reputation had reportedly been unraveling quietly long before the world ever heard the name Jeffrey Epstein. During his years as trade envoy, criticism followed him repeatedly over lavish overseas travel, expensive accommodations, and luxury trips that drew growing public frustration. The British tabloids eventually gave him a nickname, Air Miles Andy. It was meant to sting. And according to royal observers, it did exactly that, slowly reshaping how the public saw him. But the travel stories were only part of it. More and more accounts allegedly started surfacing from people who claimed to have interacted with Andrew privately. Former palace staff, household employees, protection officers, service workers. Their stories were often remarkably similar, describing someone viewed as arrogant, dismissive, and deeply difficult to work around. And one story in particular refused to go away because of how strange it sounded. Former maid Charlotte Briggs, who worked in royal households during the 1990s, publicly claimed that Andrew maintained extremely strict rules surrounding his famous teddy bear collection. According to her, every stuffed animal had to be positioned in exact places across his bed each day, with precise arrangements staff were expected to memorize. Commentators say that story may have sounded eccentric at first, but it quickly became part of a much larger, much darker picture. Because Briggs also claimed that staff occasionally faced intense criticism over things most people would consider completely trivial. She described being left in tears after reportedly being sharply scolded over something as minor as the curtains in his office. She later contrasted his behavior with other royals she had worked around, claiming the difference was striking. Now, these are personal recollections, not official findings. But royal observers say stories like these matter because together, they build something that is very difficult to tear down, a pattern. And then came 2019, the moment everything finally collapsed in public. Andrew sat down for a BBC Newsnight interview reportedly intended to ease public concern over his friendship with Jeffrey Epstein. What happened instead became one of the most damaging royal media appearances in modern history. Almost immediately, the broadcast became a global disaster. Viewers reacted with disbelief. Commentators described Andrew's tone as detached, awkward, and strangely emotionless during a moment that demanded accountability and human connection. The backlash was swift and total. Military titles disappeared. Patronages removed. Public duties gone almost overnight. And insiders say the distance between Andrew and official royal life only grew larger from there. But what makes the latest allegations so compelling to royal watchers is this: even after the massive scandals dominated headlines for years, the older stories never fully went away. They simply waited. Quietly. Ready to resurface at any moment. Another widely discussed allegation reportedly involved a security officer who claimed he received aggressive and insulting language over the phone after refusing entry to a visitor. The exchange was described as deeply hostile and humiliating. And according to commentators, once again, the pattern felt painfully familiar. Story after story. Person after person. All describing a man who allegedly treated those around him as though they existed simply to absorb his frustration and anger behind closed doors. There were also reports from professionals and service workers who later claimed certain interactions with Andrew left them deeply uncomfortable. One massage therapist who spoke to the press years ago alleged that comments made during an appointment crossed personal boundaries and created an uneasy atmosphere. Each story added more weight to an already collapsing public image. But according to observers, the Warsaw allegation feels distinctly different from all of them. Because this wasn't a private moment inside palace walls. If Bauer's account is accurate, Andrew allegedly made that remark in front of diplomats, government officials, and senior business figures during a formal international engagement. And commentators say that detail is the most startling part of all, because it would suggest Andrew didn't just allegedly behave badly in private. He allegedly felt entirely comfortable doing so even in the most formal possible settings, while representing the British monarchy abroad. That, observers say, is no longer just a story about a difficult personality. It's a story about someone who may have genuinely believed the normal rules simply did not apply to him. And now, years later, those stories are resurfacing at a moment when Andrew's world looks dramatically smaller than it once did. Recent reports claim he has left Royal Lodge, the Grand Windsor property long tied to his identity, and relocated to a far more modest property on the Sandringham estate in Norfolk. The contrast, commentators say, could hardly be more striking. There was a time when Prince Andrew travelled the world on behalf of the monarchy: naval connections, state functions, international tours, elite business gatherings, constant visibility at the centre of royal life. Today, the headlines surrounding him focus on scandal, lost privilege, and uncomfortable stories from the past that refuse to disappear. And according to observers, that shift may partly explain why so many former insiders and staff members now seem increasingly willing to speak openly. Because when powerful figures lose influence, people who once stayed silent often begin to feel far safer sharing what they kept private for years. The atmosphere changes. The pressure lifts. And the stories start coming. There was also an allegation reportedly connected to Tina Brown's book The Palace Papers, a claim that Andrew made a harsh and humiliating remark about Sarah Ferguson during a business meeting at Royal Lodge in 2015. The reported comment drew sharp criticism once it circulated. Observers describe it as unnecessarily cruel towards someone who had publicly defended him through multiple controversies over many years. Prince Andrew has never publicly addressed that specific allegation directly. Meanwhile, royal observers say the monarchy has been moving steadily and deliberately toward greater distance from him. Appearances restricted. Honours reduced. Visibility quietly managed from behind the scenes. And according to insiders, the focus inside palace circles is no longer on rebuilding Andrew's reputation. It is firmly on limiting further damage to the institution itself. King Charles is attempting to present a leaner, more disciplined monarchy centred around stability and public service. Prince William is increasingly seen as the future face of a modernised institution designed to reconnect with younger audiences. Against that backdrop, Andrew's ongoing controversies generate exactly the kind of headlines palace officials want desperately to avoid, because every new allegation immediately drags attention back toward scandals the monarchy has spent years trying to bury. And so Andrew exists in a strange middle ground now. Not fully cut off. Not truly central either. Still technically part of the family. Yet increasingly separated from the public image the monarchy wants to project going forward. According to commentators, that slow, quiet fading, under the weight of allegation after allegation, controversy after controversy, may ultimately become Prince Andrew's lasting place in the royal story. Not a dramatic public exile. Not a triumphant comeback. Just an uncomfortable, unresolved fade, beneath a reputation that became impossible to repair. Because people remember shocking moments far longer than carefully managed palace statements. They remember silence in a room. They remember remarks that feel like they reveal something true about a person. And according to observers, That may be exactly why this latest allegation has resonated so powerfully, because for many people, it feels like one more piece of a picture that has been forming for a very long time. So the question that lingers now, were these stories always there, waiting to be told? Or has Andrew simply become the monarchy's most convenient and most vulnerable target? That's for you to decide. Let us know what you think in the comments below.